Hello, Sagittarius. Welcome to your story for the week. Are you excited? Because I am. Let's see what comes up. Oh, okay. We got the Two of Swords and the Three of Wands. Wow. Ooh. Ooh. Two of Swords, Three of Wands. The story of a blind traveler. Okay, we have a story about a blind traveler who is going from one kingdom to another. Okay, so once upon a time, there lived a young woman who belonged to a merchant family. And she had been blinded in an accident years earlier where her face was burned. Anyway, is that relevant to the story? Probably. And consequently, she wore bandages around her eyes. She had learned to cope with her life. She was still able to help with weaving because her family produced baskets. She was also very well trained in business matters, but she couldn't be like front and center in terms of like dealing with customers because obviously she couldn't see a lot of what she was doing. And, she lived a pretty isolated life in the background in many ways, even though she had been preparing herself to kind of help run the family business. And, the family too while they cared for her greatly and appreciated her, they were really concerned, okay, about what was going to happen to her in the future. Like, would her siblings have to take care of her? What would she do for work? They didn't think she was marriageable. So there was a lot to consider for her future and her comfort. And they were a family that was up and coming, so they had resources, but they really were very deeply concerned that they wouldn't have enough essentially to take care of her as she got older and as her parents died. So anyway, they worked very hard. They started making connections with neighboring towns, and this is where our heroine comes into the story, because her family decides they need a representative in terms of making some business arrangements, but no money has to change hands in this scenario. They needed someone basically to go visit this neighboring merchant in another town, speak to them about the business. And the brilliant thing about this idea of sending our heroine, let's call her Suzanne, our heroine Suzanne, she knew the business, all the intricacies. She was educated. She could definitely represent their interests well in this meeting and negotiate on behalf of the family. So she was, approached by her father and told that he had this idea. She jumped at the, chance to get away and to just have some new experience. So they started planning for this trip, It was going to take more. She was going to need someone Well, obviously, she had her, like, she would need a servant to attend to her, basically, on this trip, because it was going to be a little bit too difficult. You know, she couldn't manage it on her own. So this person needed to be trustworthy as well. So the family arrange it, and they get her all set up for the trip. And they load her down with gifts to bring to her hosts and documents to sign and money in case she needs it. So they put her on her little wagon one Saturday morning and send her off. She couldn't see the countryside. She couldn't see anything that was happening, but she could hear the birds and she could feel the warm sun and the fresh air. And she was thoroughly enjoying herself. You know, this trip took about half a day, and it would be starting to get nightfall when she got to where they were headed. So, as the sun started to creep downwards in the afternoon sky, she and her party came to the city gates, and they had to pay a toll to get in. So she gave 3 coins, and they entered. And as they entered the city, they were met with all kinds of like noise and festivities and just chaos. So our heroine Suzanne cannot see anything, and all around her is basically they were having a party in the city, okay? Like, which her hosts had neglected to mention. And they hadn't really been prepared for the fact that she was blind either. So this was going to be an interesting affair indeed. So she struggled. She's tried to like communicate to the driver and her servant, like, what is going on? And they're like trying to explain to her that there's this big party, and she's just overwhelmed, right? Her heart's beating, she's breathing deeply, and her nerve has just gone. You know, she had been so tranquil the entire afternoon, and then this just chaos came in and shook like her resolve, and she started to feel nervous about approaching these people. Nervous about what she would say. Nervous if she could speak loud enough to be heard. So slowly through the town, they made their way to the home of her hosts, another merchant family. As they arrived, it just got dark, and the chill started to enter the air. They were welcomed in by torch and brought into the main part of the home. The, I suppose, entryway, if you will, of the villa in which the hosts lived. When her hosts came down to greet her, they were quite perplexed at her bandages and said, "My dear, has there been an accident?" "No accident, everything's fine." "But your eyes, they are covered." "Oh, yes, I am blind." "You're blind? We were not told of this." So nervously, like, she just responds, "Will this be a problem?" Ooh, a little sarcastic. And they immediately respond, "Oh no, no problem at all. Please come in." And they welcomed her, sent her to her rooms, and it told her when dinner would be, which would be happening shortly. So in her room, she was attended to by her servant, who took off her bandages and dressed her face, because you understand there's like a lot of damaged skin around the eyes. Her eyes shone white and with tinges of like a gray blue, and they just were like worlds in and of themselves. So she's unwrapped and having like basically a mixture of oil and fat placed on her skin. And this hurts because the skin there is very thin and it has much damage to it, and it's highly sensitive. And it's sensitive to heat, and it's sensitive to cold, and it turns red, and there's all manner of fluctuations happening with her face, which is another thing that the bandages help conceal. And she's chatting with her servant, and she said, "Did I make a bad impression? Do you think that it would be rude to miss dinner? Like, I'm already so tired." Basically, her servant convinces her, you have to go down, make an entrance. This can't be awkward. So begrudgingly, she goes and meets them for dinner. And her host, the man of the house, a man her father's age, welcomes her and asks her how everything's going, makes small talk. This isn't they don't start off with business, right? They just start having a nice pleasant meal, talking about her journey and such. She asks him about the party, the kind of carnival that seems to be happening in the city, and she can hear it happening outside. And the king says, "Yeah, actually, this is a day of celebration. I should have told you in letter, but I didn't know if it would be, I didn't think it would cause your party to be too late or anything like that." So she asks him, like, what's the story behind this carnival party? Like, why does the town celebrate it? Now we're gonna find out why. It is to celebrate the prince's birthday. In this area, the local towns were run by basically each city was like a state in of itself, with a ruling prince. So this town had its own. And she said, the prince's birthday. So how old is the prince? And the king, or not the king, her host basically responds, "You see, this prince has long been dead, okay? He's not with us, but we celebrate the prince's birthday because he was the founder of this city." She's like, "Oh, so you are celebrating the founding of this city?" "I suppose we are. We just call it the prince's birthday." So already she sees that this town is not like the one she comes from. She's like, "Tell me more about this prince." Who founded this fair land, this fair town, this fair village, this fair city. He came from another town, and he took the land that this city is built upon. He carved out, first with chalk and then with posts, the very edges of the city walls, which still stand today. We have glorious city walls, but there is a high tariff on those entering and leaving the city walls, you see. And these costs must be added to any imported goods. So she responds, essentially what you're saying is that what we charge in our own town will be greatly increased if we are to bring our product here in cost. Why, yes. Will that not make our baskets unaffordable to the average person? Why, yes, said her host, but I do not intend to sell your baskets to just anyone. So then tell me, who do you intend to sell our baskets to? Your baskets I wish to have for myself and for my friends. We would like one order, but we do not intend to sell in perpetuity for you. And she was crushed because this is what she came to do, right? Which was to establish like a trade route for her family. So she takes a sip of her wine, sits back, and beckons to her servant to remove her bandages. Right? I know. And as her face is revealed, the skin around her eyes has turned a sort of red. And she faces the direction of her host, and she says, I know that I cannot see with my eyes, but I can see through my ears. And I see that you are a fair man, and I see that you have much esteem for the products which my family sells. You know, you have much esteem for our baskets. But we are not looking to sell only a few. It was my understanding that there would be an arrangement between our two families. In fact, that is why they sent me to traverse the land, to enter the city, to make this deal. You see, I am the family treasurer. You're the treasurer? How can you be the treasurer if you cannot see coins? I do not see coins, sir, but I see opportunity. And I will not have any of our baskets in the homes of your friends without knowing exactly who these friends are. And I certainly am not going to have you hoard our fine products. They're meant to be shared with the public. And with that, she stood up and went to her room for the night. Her host was shocked. He really didn't know what to do. She had basically turned down this offer of buying a bunch of baskets from her family. Why? I mean, he had no intention of becoming an agent for them. You understand, like helping distribute their wares in a mercantile fashion. He really just wanted them for himself. So he thought, she's willing to turn down, as treasurer, she's willing to turn down this, and take a loss. Why? So that night, after everyone had gone to bed, this dude comes and knocks on her door. Very inappropriate, I have to say. Offering her a nightcap. And she says, "This is a highly unusual way to do business. Why do you come to me in this way?" And he basically says, "I want to understand what it is that you want." And she says, "I want my family's baskets sold in every town in this land. Every town and city, I want the homes to be filled with our baskets." "How is that even possible? Do you produce enough baskets?" "My sir, you do not understand. We intend to produce them in every town. So what we are asking for is that you invest in establishing a factory in this town." Now he was shocked, like this is not what he expected. A factory? Yes, where our baskets can be produced. "Do you have any idea how much that will cost?" He said, "I think it will cost greatly, but I think the profit will be even greater. Think of all the jobs that will be created if you bring this to your city. How many unemployed do you have? Why, this would create 25 jobs at least in the first year, and it could go on to create more. In fact, I have had a vision that our baskets will be created and sold and distributed throughout the world. And you could be an investor in this. If only you wouldn't keep these baskets for yourself." I must go to bed now. And so then she closes the door on him. And he's just left feeling like, oh wow, what a plan. The interesting part of this whole plan is that she came up with it on the spot herself. Like, after leaving dinner, she was like, "You know what? I know how much money this guy has. I know what he's worth. I'm going to take him for all of it," right? So that morning at breakfast, they meet up again. He says to her, "I will take your offer." And he said, "And as a measure of my goodwill, I have a daughter available. Can she marry into your family?" And yeah, then she says, basically, Suzanne says, "Well, yes, I have a younger brother who's still looking, or who still has no wife. Let me see with the family." Long story short, she leaves, brings back a whole new business model, a freaking wife for her younger brother, a consolidation of familial wealth, 2 mercantile families in 2 different cities. They consolidate their power, they grow as a family, she's set. She, her family hooks her up with a home, her own servants. She's good, and she remains basically a business strategist within the family for life, okay? And nobody expected it. It's something that came to her out of nowhere, a flash of inspiration. So yeah, thank you, Sagittarius. This was your story. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it gives you something to think about. Bye.